Welcome to the Museum of Boring Things. Here, ordinary objects rest beneath the hush of time. We gather not for spectacle, but for stillness, to trace the quiet ingenuity pressed into everyday form. Tonight's exhibit is the toothbrush, fashioned in obscurity, indispensable in practice, carrying the soft weight of anonymous invention. Let your thoughts uncoil and your breath settle in. Should drowsiness arrive before our story concludes, consider it a courtesy of the collection. Now, let us open the glass case and listen for the silence between its hinges. The toothbrush begins, not with nylon or paste, but with twig and tooth, with quiet friction and the soft resilience of fiber. Before there were plastics or packaging, there were branches, chewed, split, and frayed into bristled fans. In the hands of an ancient sleeper, somewhere between Nile silt and lunar stillness, a small stick was rubbed along the gum line, not out of vanity, but out of ritual, a hushed choreography between human persistence and oral discomfort. The miswak, the neem, the arak root, all bore antiseptic whispers within their fibers. They were chewed not merely for cleanliness, but for communion, with mourning, with decay, with the breath of one's own survival. Here, behind this softly lit pane, rests a replica of a chewing stick, dry, fibrous, vaguely fragrant. The wood itself carries a scent like distant rain on old bark, and though it has never known a barcode, it hums faintly with intention. The whispered glide of a curator's sleeve passes over the label. The stick, while silent, speaks of continuity, used by pharaohs and poets alike, gnawed to bloom like a floral brush. Centuries ambled forward, and with them, a gradual stiffening of both bristle and belief. The first purpose-built toothbrushes, fashioned in Tang Dynasty China, were curious things. Handles carved of bone or bamboo, bristles plucked unceremoniously from the necks of wild hogs. There is no record of the hogs' opinions on the matter, though we might imagine them faintly unimpressed. These bristles, stiff and coarse, were bound into drilled holes with thread or resin, forming an instrument that resembled a small broom, and felt, most likely, like scrubbing one's mouth with a hedgehog. And yet, progress rarely arrives with a bow. These first toothbrushes were, in their way, miracles, pocket-sized rituals of hygiene in a world still largely ruled by soot and superstition. The bristles frayed quickly, the handles cracked with moisture, but the idea, this notion of cleaning the teeth with a purpose-built device, began its slow burrow into cultural permanence. Like a snail curling into its shell, the toothbrush began to take shape. The faint hush of felt gloves folds around the display. We see here a replica of one such Chinese brush, modest, angular, bearing the wear of ritual. Its presence here is quiet, almost embarrassed, as though uncertain it belongs in a world of electric spin and ergonomic grip. But history is not kind to certainty. For every technological marvel, there lies beneath it a trial, a forgotten sequence of attempts that felt, at the time, oddly like brushing one's teeth with a miniature broomstick dipped in brine. As the centuries meandered, the toothbrush migrated westward. In Europe, it passed through monasteries and merchant ships, traveling in the pockets of those who prized order and breadth in equal measure. But it would not settle into domestic familiarity until one fateful English gentleman, William Addis, found himself imprisoned in the late 18th century. Faced with boredom and perhaps halitosis, he fashioned a toothbrush from bone and bristles and quietly altered the arc of dental history. Addis, like many inventors, was not so much inspired as he was inconvenienced. His creation less a flash of genius, more a slow rebellion against filth. This object before us, an Addis-inspired replica, rests like a well-fed crowbar, curved, white, and improbably elegant. The bristles are arranged with the formality of a regimented hedge, and the handle bears a faint scratch where a prisoner might once have tapped his impatience. The whispered rustle of catalog paper fills the air. One wonders if Addis, staring at a jail wall, imagined that millions would one day perform his invention's ritual twice daily, preferably in small circles. By the late 19th century, mass production arrived not with thunder, but with machinery that sighed. Handles were carved of celluloid, an early plastic that carried the faint scent of billiard balls and formal dances. Bristles remained animal in origin, usually boar, still wiry and unrepentant. The toothbrush, now boxed and labeled, began to sidle into the marketplace, not as luxury, but as obligation. Advertisements whispered of social ruin for those with unpleasant breath. Cleanliness, once sacred, was becoming commercial. Displayed here is a celluloid-handled model from the early 20th century, ivory-colored, slightly warped by time. It lies across velvet like a napping lizard. Its bristles are uneven, and a few have fallen out, giving the impression of dental alopecia. The curator's breath fogs faintly on the glass, vanishing like morning mist. This toothbrush, once wrapped in waxed paper and sold for pennies, now rests as a minor relic of a major shift, the industrialization of the intimate. With the Second World War came a peculiar alignment. American soldiers were issued toothbrushes as standard equipment, and their consistent use helped normalize the habit across civilian life. Nylon bristles, developed by DuPont in the late 1930s, replaced animal hair, ushering in a new era of hygiene, synthetic, standardized, and disturbingly efficient. Nylon did not bend. It did not soften. It cleaned with the gentle resolve of a bureaucrat's handshake. Here, in this case, a wartime-issued military brush awaits our gaze, its olive drab handle shaped like a narrow canoe. The nylon bristles remain intact, still ready for orders. The whispered creak of floorboards reminds us how objects persist, long after intentions fade. These brushes, distributed in thousands, taught a nation that hygiene was not personal. It was patriotic. Soon, the market erupted in variation. Angled heads, rubber grips, children's brushes with cartoon seals and embedded glitter. The toothbrush had entered its Baroque phase, ornamented, extravagant, a little too eager to please. Somewhere, the spirit of the ancient chewing stick recoiled softly, resembling a jellyfish attempting yoga. Yet, amid the sparkle and sonic vibrations, the core remained unchanged. A handle, a head, a purpose. We close tonight not with triumph, but with quiet acknowledgement. The toothbrush, like many tools of daily ceremony, rarely inspires affection. It is not admired. It is replaced. Its loyalty is intimate, but unsung. It performs its work in silence, then returns to its cup, upright, damp, anonymous. And so, the toothbrush rests again, soft in memory, flexible in meaning, always ready to begin anew. The toothbrush continues not in invention, but in repetition. By now, it had entered the basin of daily life, sitting among soap and combs, a quiet observer of morning rituals and midnight regrets. Its presence was rarely questioned. It was simply there, waiting, bristling, absorbing the rhythms of ordinary time. But while its role had solidified, its materials continued to shift, as if it too sought comfort in reinvention. The wooden handles, prone to swelling and splintering, gave way to early plastics, bakelite, cellulose acetate, and their quietly mutating cousins. These were substances not born, but synthesized, extruded with a laboratory sigh, and cooled beneath fluorescent light. Displayed beneath this dim case light, an early acetate toothbrush lounges in polite disrepair. Its color, once white, has yellowed like old piano keys, and its surface bears a faint crackling, as if time itself had exhaled over its spine. The whispered press of a gloved fingertip finds a bristle still faintly rigid, like a librarian's opinion in a late-night debate. These were brushes meant to last, but not forever. Durability, in the industrial age, was a matter of compromise. Long enough to function, short enough to sell again. By mid-century, toothbrushes were molded entirely by machine. Injection molding allowed for rapid production, consistent form, and curious flamboyance. Colors multiplied: sky blue, mint green, scandalous pink. Some handles acquired curves resembling melted spoons. Others stood rigid, proud as marching soldiers in a bathroom drawer. The designs began to hint at psychology, ergonomic contours for control, transparent plastics to suggest purity. One could almost hear the marketing department whispering beneath the molding presses. Here, to your right, a transparent blue toothbrush from the 1960s floats against a black felt background. Its form is fluid, as though mid-swish, yet its intent is firm. The bristles, no longer boar but nylon, remain perfectly aligned, militaristic, almost smug. The whispered scrape of a display drawer accompanies your gaze. This brush, though mass-produced, aspired to elegance, like a swan attending traffic school. By the 1980s, the toothbrush had begun its flirtation with electricity. First came the vibrating brushes, small motors tucked into thick handles, humming with mild urgency. These were not so much revolutions as they were murmurs, gentle reminders that automation had reached the bathroom mirror. The electric toothbrush, like its manual ancestor, still bore bristles and handled plaque, but it did so with a mechanical consistency that made human effort seem quaint. It was the difference between handwriting and typing. Same words, different hum. One such early electric brush reclines here, its base thick and slightly absurd, like a thermos that lost its sense of proportion. A coiled cord once linked it to a charging base, now lost to time. The whispered flicker of the museum's overhead light reflects off its molded ridges. It looks more appliance than utensil, a tool of dental defiance in an age of neon optimism. By the late 1990s, toothbrushes had become arenas for innovation. Bristles were layered, cross-angled, tapered at microscopic levels. Some boasted color-changing tips that faded with time, gently admonishing the owner to replace the brush. Others offered tongue scrapers on the back of the head, as if turning the mouth into a two-sided battlefield. Handle grips grew rubberized, with textures that recalled hiking gear or surgical gloves. It was a golden age of minute enhancements, each more confident than the last. This example from the early 2000s is a case in point. Dual-colored, ergonomically shaped, with a tongue pad that resembles a caterpillar in repose, it is a marvel of minor ambition. The curator's hand, moving with deliberate slowness, rotates the stand slightly. The brush remains unmoved, too dignified to gloat, too aware of its own obsolescence. For though it promised freshness and flair, it knew it would be discarded, eventually, without ceremony. Of course, not all toothbrushes are domestic. In the sterile corridors of hospitals, in the metal drawers of long-haul trucks, in survival kits buried beneath mountain cabins, there are brushes made for other contexts. Some are single-use, preloaded with dry paste. Others fold like penknives or come with bristles impregnated with antiseptic. These are toothbrushes stripped of romance, reduced to function, yet noble in their austerity. A single-use military field brush lies here, sealed in clear cellophane like a tiny sarcophagus. Its handle is hollow, its bristles short and stiff, like a porcupine bracing for impact. The whispered tap of the label's corner against the display glass marks its presence. These brushes do not aspire to be remembered. They are made to vanish, to perform, to leave no trace but clean enamel and mild regret. The rise of sustainability has begun to nudge the toothbrush back toward its botanical roots. Bamboo handles, biodegradable bristles, and compostable packaging have returned, though this time with hashtags and minimalist design. The toothbrush, once synthetic and proud of it, now strives to appear humble. Irony, perhaps, is the only constant in human invention. A product designed for hygiene now grapples with its own ecological footprint. A contemporary bamboo brush rests here, its handle smooth and matte, as though carved by ocean breeze. The bristles are charcoal-infused, their color dark and self-serious. The soft rustle of a drawer closing nearby punctuates the silence. One might think this brush superior in morality, but it too must be replaced. Cleanliness, after all, demands disposal. In time, designers have experimented with shape itself. There are circular brushes that oscillate like polite whirlpools. There are sonic brushes that emit frequencies high enough to startle small dogs. There are brushes for braces, for dentures, for children shaped like dolphins or dragons, or inexplicably jubilant fruits. Each brush seeks to erase its predecessor, not out of spite, but ambition. The toothbrush is in its soul an optimist, forever imagining a cleaner tomorrow, one plaque film at a time. And here, on this final platform for the evening, a toothbrush shaped like a banana with bristles where the stem once was. It is not a joke. It was sold, marketed, purchased, and used. The soft chuckle of a passing docent is swiftly muffled. This brush, in all its surreal glory, marks the far edge of innovation, where hygiene meets whimsy, and both quietly agree to be slightly ridiculous. As we dim the lights on this evening's exhibit, the toothbrush remains, unchanged in purpose, manifold in form, ever faithful to the invisible task of renewal. Let us, in turn, renew our appreciation, not for novelty, but for quiet perseverance. The toothbrush had by now become invisible in plain sight. It stood upright in cups beside faucets, clattered softly in travel kits, and lay forgotten beneath drawers where lost hair ties congregated like polite exiles. Its ubiquity made it unremarkable. And yet, beneath this quiet omnipresence, manufacturers continued to sculpt its destiny, not with revolutions, but with tweaks. Each iteration promised smoother strokes, deeper cleans, brighter smiles, though the core remained stubbornly unchanged. It was a small object that refused to evolve past usefulness. At the heart of this evolution was the bristle. No longer simple nylon, bristles became engineered fields, multi-level, multicolor, even multi-behavioral. Some bristles stood tall like sentries. Others bent submissively to cradle a molar's curve. A few shimmered faintly under halogen lights, as though hinting at advanced degrees. The bristle, once the toothbrush's quiet servant, had begun to show ambition. Here, in this softly lit display, rests a mid-2010s brush with what the label describes as tri-zone action. The head appears almost overconfident, with clusters pointing in conflicting directions like a hedgehog attempting ballet. The whispered click of the display light accentuates its spiny silhouette. One imagines the user standing before a mirror, uncertain which cluster to trust, yet too polite to question the design. And then the marketing spoke louder. Sonic, ionic, micropulsing. These were not descriptions, but incantations. The toothbrush was rebranded not as a utensil, but as a device. With every vibration, it seemed to say, "Look how far we've come from sticks." And indeed, in this curated silence, the contrast is sharp. Where once there was a chewed twig, now hums a brush that glows blue when paired via Bluetooth to an app that tracks your molar neglect. One such specimen reclines in this next case, its handle smooth and unbroken, like a minimalist sculpture attempting optimism. A faint ridge hints at a button. The brush vibrates faintly when moved, more out of habit than need. The gentle whir of a dehumidifier hums in the background. This brush does not clean. It reports, it synchronizes, it celebrates your diligence with digital confetti. One could almost miss the irony. A tool designed for simplicity now applauds you for remembering it exists. But not all brushes are so cheerful. Some reside in hospitals, wrapped in sterile foil, offered without instruction to patients who may not recognize them. These are the brushes of contingency, thin, disposable, preloaded with paste. Their bristles are too soft, their purpose too narrow. And yet, they speak of another intimacy, the shared dignity of cleanliness in the face of indignity. To hold such a brush is to remember, if faintly, that you are still a person, still capable of routine. This hospital-issued brush rests on a plain linen backing, unmarked and undecorated. It looks more like a test swab than a grooming tool. The whispered rustle of the exhibit's pamphlet echoes distantly. Its presence here is not to impress, but to remind. Even in antiseptic stillness, the toothbrush endures, quietly championing the self. Travel toothbrushes represent another domain of adjustment. Foldable, collapsible, even inflatable in rare and regrettable cases, these brushes prioritize space over form. They are designed not for pleasure, but for absence, for forgetting, then remembering, then using. Some have caps shaped like helmets, others snap closed like worried insects. All are engineered to be nearly invisible when not required, like a chameleon practicing modesty. Here we see a folding toothbrush from a business class amenity kit, its casing matte black, its hinge slightly squeaky with age. It rests beside a miniature tube of paste and a mint that once dreamed of grandeur. The soft ping of a timer elsewhere in the gallery mimics the passage of hotel time, brief, silent, and vaguely mint-scented. The children's toothbrush, however, tells another story. With exaggerated grips and bright colors, it aims not to clean, but to convince. It must be fun. It must sparkle. It must depict a heroic shark who adores flossing. The child may resist, may chew the bristles into resignation, may fling the brush behind the radiator, but the design holds fast, bright, bulbous, unthreatening. It is a toothbrush that pleads for companionship. A cartoon-themed brush, worn and sticky, now rests here, its head misshapen by what can only be described as enthusiastic misuse. The cartoon character's eyes are faded, its smile cracked, yet the handle still fits snugly in a small palm. The whispered exhale of the ventilation system crosses the display like an unseen lullaby. This brush did not win, perhaps, but it persisted, and that is a kind of victory. The ecological movement began to creep into design language. Compostable handles, detachable heads, bristles made from castor bean oil. It all sounded noble, and often was. But the toothbrush was caught in contradiction. It must be disposable, yet permanent. Hygienic, yet biodegradable. Fashionable, yet invisible. Few objects navigate this terrain with such quiet confusion. Here lies an eco-brush with modular design. The head can be replaced, the handle reused, the packaging recycled. And yet, the head is missing. The curator's glove hovers above the empty slot. Was it used, misplaced, never installed? The toothbrush, as ever, invites participation, even in its own incompleteness. Like a monk who forgot his bowl, it waits without complaint. And so we arrive at the smart toothbrush. With accelerometers and gyroscopes, pressure sensors, and heat map charts, these devices know more about your brushing habits than you do. They scold gently through apps, display statistics with pastel graphs, and nudge you to brush the upper left molar with more fervor. The toothbrush has become an analyst, a personal trainer for the mouth, a kindly surveillance device wearing a minty smile. Displayed here is one such brush, its LED blinking softly beneath the glass. It charges wirelessly, logs data invisibly, and yet, beneath all this sophistication, it still contains nylon filaments stuck into a plastic head. The whispered tick of a far clock punctuates the quiet. This is progress, perhaps, or performance, or simply another loop in a long routine. For despite all its variations, manual, electric, travel, pediatric, ecological, intelligent, the toothbrush remains achingly consistent. It is not a tool of transformation, but of maintenance. It does not create beauty. It preserves the absence of rot. And in that silent mission, it endures longer than most inventions with grander names. The toothbrush does not demand gratitude. It asks only to be lifted twice a day, to be rinsed and returned. And in this humility, it becomes almost invisible again, like a friend who always shows up but never insists on being noticed. The toothbrush, for all its material permutations and design bravado, remains a thing of rituals, not grand ones, not gilded or remembered, but soft, repetitive rites tucked between waking and sleep. Its movement is circular, its purpose consistent, its legacy accidental. Few tools live so completely in the cracks of time. It exists in that space before the commute, after the dinner, during the fog of illness, or the shimmer of anticipation before a date. And still, it asks nothing but a grip and a few quiet strokes. Here, set gently on a backdrop of brushed velvet, rests a toothbrush still damp from life, donated not for its novelty, but for its honesty. Its handle is worn where fingers once curled nightly, its head slightly splayed like a hedgehog after rain. The soft flutter of an exhibit tag shifting in air accompanies your gaze. There is no heroism here, just a whisper of the ordinary, captured before it could be thrown away. But even in its humble repetitions, the toothbrush has gathered entourages, devices that support, extend, or comment on its mission. The cup, the cap, the holder shaped like a miniature castle or chrome tower, the ultraviolet sanitizer with softly humming light. These are the toothbrush's companions, born from both utility and superstition. Do bacteria leap from bristle to sink? Does the cap preserve or suffocate? Does UV truly cleanse, or merely comfort? Here in a recessed alcove, a rotating carousel from the 1980s spins slowly in an eternal loop. 4 brushes stand like soldiers awaiting orders, their colors faded but proud. In the center, a timer, plastic hourglass filled with pink sand the color of false hope. The whispered tick of the turning mechanism joins the ambient hum. One imagines a family sharing this device, each morning a polite ballet of elbows and mint. Yet for all its accessories, the toothbrush rarely travels in glory. It is stuffed into zip bags, crushed in luggage, forgotten in hotel rooms. There is no monument to the lost toothbrushes of travel, though they number in the millions. A museum drawer here holds a sampling, a brush left behind in Prague, another in Johannesburg, a third wrapped in a note that simply reads, "Sorry." The third brush is pink with green bristles. It rests diagonally on a folded boarding pass. The gentle creak of the drawer reveals a faint scent of plastic and nostalgia. This is not a great artifact. It is not unique. And yet it tells of something intensely personal. A mouth, a moment, a departure. Objects do not feel, but they absorb. And the toothbrush absorbs more than most. Saliva, sure, but also routine, fear, vanity, regret. Children often treat toothbrushes as companions. Adults forget them entirely. And in that forgetting lies a quiet cruelty. No other object spends so much time in our mouths, so much effort on our behalf, only to be discarded with a flick and a shrug. We replace them with a calculation of days. 3 months, some say, or when the bristles no longer stand. But rarely do we notice the shift. One day it simply looks tired, like a retired violinist holding an unstrung bow. This tiredness is evident in the exhibit to your left, a brush with bent bristles and a chewed-down thumb rest. The rubber has peeled slightly at the edge, revealing a translucent underlayer like the ghost of good intentions. The soft scuff of a shoe across parquet punctuates its stillness. This brush did not fail. It merely served until it could not serve well. Its retirement was not a ceremony, but a necessity. There is, too, the matter of paste. Though technically a separate invention, it has twined itself to the toothbrush with such intimacy that the two seem incomplete without one another. Early tooth powders, chalk, charcoal, pulverized bone, offered abrasive companionship. Later, pastes promised freshness, foam, fluoride, and exotic flavors, like Arctic mint or cinnamon blaze. Some even included tiny beads meant to burst like regrets under pressure. In the corner display stands a tube from 1947, labeled dental cream in looping script. The cap is aluminum, flattened at one side, as if clenched by teeth in wartime haste. A matching toothbrush, brown and brittle, lies beside it. The air here carries a trace of wax and paper. Together, the brush and paste resemble a duet, perhaps not in tune, but inseparable, like dancers who've grown weary of each other's rhythm yet still perform. Marketing has rarely ignored the toothbrush. Each generation receives a fresh appeal: whiter teeth, better breath, smarter angles. The slogan's whisper promises too mundane for skepticism. Feel the clean. Your smile deserves more. Now with 17% more glide. Behind the slogans lie surveys, color psychology, and consumer panels debating the shade of the handle's grip. One artifact, a mock-up from a 1990s focus group, displays 6 toothbrush prototypes arranged like a crown of dental thorns. Each has a slightly different bend, a slightly different hue. The curator's sleeve rustles faintly as the lights shift. These prototypes never reached shelves, but they were considered. Someone, somewhere, brushed their teeth in a lab, made notes, and moved on. There have been attempts to eliminate the toothbrush entirely, chewing gums infused with microabrasives, mouthwashes claiming total plaque annihilation, finger-mounted wipes, yet the brush remains, not because it is perfect, but because it is tactile. There is a human satisfaction in brushing, a rhythm, a sense of control, a small triumph before bed. The toothbrush, despite every attempt to replace it, endures like a superstition too practical to abandon. The final display of this haul shows a toothbrush mounted beneath a bell jar. It is not unique, rare, or valuable. It was used by a man named Ellis H. for 6 weeks. Then he left it in a hotel room in Marseille. A staff member found it. It changed nothing. But it is here. The label reads only, "Well used, well enough." The soft settling of dust on glass is the only applause it will ever receive. The toothbrush, now so fully entwined with the mundane, had become emblematic of the background hum of domestic life. It was not praised, not feared, not envied. It was merely there, always. Its disappearance sparked brief confusion. Its replacement was never celebrated. But, through its silent routine, it carried out one of the few remaining acts of private maintenance not yet surrendered to automation or abstraction. And this, perhaps, was its quiet rebellion. In the linen-toned cradle of tonight's featured case lies a toothbrush from 2021, its head worn slightly to one side, as if sighing under the weight of so many mornings. The handle, still sturdy, bears the faint imprint of a thumb over time, a crescent worn into soft plastic like the track of a snail reconsidering its path. The whispered breath of conditioned air brushes the velvet below. This object did not belong to someone famous, but it belonged. That, it seems, is enough. If we follow the toothbrush across geography, its forms scatter and converge in curious ways. In parts of Asia, thin-handled brushes with densely packed bristles dominate, engineered with surgical precision and the sort of restraint one might expect from a calligrapher. In South America, bold-colored brushes with wide grips and broad bristle fields appeal to the senses more than the science. In Scandinavian bathrooms, one often finds modest brushes, matte, monochrome, discreet, as if even oral hygiene should be minimalist. One display wall here presents a panoramic tableau, toothbrushes from 42 countries, arranged like specimens of migratory birds. The colors fluctuate wildly: turquoise, bone, flame orange, ash. The handles curve, split, twist, retract. But the heads remain the same, rectangular with rounded corners, bristles aligned like a row of loyal clerks. The faint scratch of a curator's note pencil punctuates the hush. So much variance, so little change. Materials tell another tale. The cheap brush, mass-produced and sold in packs of 6, often contains hidden fractures, plastic tensions beneath the surface, like stress buried in a commuter's jaw. The luxury brush, by contrast, offers artisanal resin handles, hand-tufted bristles, ergonomic indulgence. Some are designed to last a decade, others a week. Yet all share the same fate: wet, used, rinsed, forgotten. The next item is just such a brush, ivory-handled, handcrafted in Germany, its name engraved in cursive along the neck. It rests in a travel case lined with suede, though the suede shows signs of toothpaste intrusion. The whispered stretch of fabric under glass reveals the compromise. Even elegance must face the froth. This brush was not more effective, only more expensive. But perhaps that too is a kind of performance. There are even brushes made of metal, aluminum, stainless steel, sometimes titanium. These boast durability, sustainability, and a near-surgical aesthetic. They are cool to the touch, sleek as submarine hulls, and often unnervingly heavy. Bristles are replaceable cartridges, clicked in and out like high-stakes pens. They appeal to the engineer, the minimalist, the over-prepared. Their coldness is not emotional, but literal. A steel-handled brush lies here, its bristle cartridge removed, its hollow shaft reflecting the overhead light like a telescope pointed inward. The soft clink of a ring against glass echoes faintly. It is not clear whether the brush was ever used, but it was admired, perhaps even displayed, an object that cleans while pretending to be a design object that doesn't. Some toothbrushes never leave packaging. They are samples, promotional items, party favors. They are not meant to be used, only noticed. Compliments of your dentist. Free with whitening kit. Part of the hotel's amenity set. These brushes live brief lives, seen, shrugged at, and shelved. Their bristles never touch enamel. They remain eternally new, which is just another way of being useless. One such example is encased in vacuum-formed plastic, its logo bright, its purpose unfulfilled. The curator's fingernail gently taps the corner of the packaging, a gesture not of judgment, but curiosity. This brush has waited 20 years to be opened. Perhaps it never will. It is not an object now, but an idea. Hygiene deferred indefinitely. Yet even brushes in use tell stories through wear. A frayed head suggests heavy-handed brushing, perhaps anxiety disguised as diligence. A pristine brush, unchanged after weeks, may hint at neglect or avoidance. Some owners press too hard. Others forget entirely. And the toothbrush, like a silent therapist, absorbs these inconsistencies without complaint. The display of used anonymouses reveals this beautifully. 12 brushes, mounted vertically, each labeled only by age and duration of use. Age 34, used for 11 weeks. Age 19, replaced after 1 week. Age 47, still in use after 6 months. The bristles range from almost untouched to mushroom-shaped collapse. The whispered flicker of an overhead bulb shadows their profiles. No judgment is passed, only observation. And observation here is an act of care. In one secluded niche of the gallery, a single brush rests alone beneath a note left by a donor. This one was with me through 2 breakups and 3 jobs. I don't know why I kept it, but I did. The handle is translucent teal, the bristles stained faintly by a toothpaste long discontinued. There is a softness to its posture, as though it slumps slightly, like a friend who no longer insists on cheering you up, but simply remains. Objects that accompany us during repetition often inherit meaning. The toothbrush may never witness triumphs or speeches or grand decisions, but it is present in grief, in recovery, in the blurry mornings after failure or joy. It is touched more often than most tools, and spoken to never. And in that silence, it offers something oddly tender. We clean our teeth not because we hope to impress anyone in the moment, but because we are creatures who maintain, who believe, against entropy, that small gestures matter, that brushing, though forgettable, is worth doing again, and again, and again. By now, the toothbrush had become more than a hygiene tool. It had settled into the fabric of habit, a placeholder for discipline, a quiet partner in the long procession of mornings and nights. If dreams had maintenance crews, the toothbrush would be their soft-spoken supervisor, clipboard in hand, ensuring each molar was briefly remembered before forgetfulness resumed its rule. It had become a rhythm, not an object. In the far alcove of the museum, a rotating installation slowly reveals dozens of toothbrushes suspended in transparent resin, each caught mid-use. Bristles bent, paste mid-foam, frozen like dancers, paused mid-spin. The ambient lighting casts faint shadows behind each form, suggesting motion where there is none. The whispered whir of the display's motor hums like a distant fan. These are brushes immortalized not for beauty, but for interruption. To observe a toothbrush is to glimpse the overlap between care and routine. Its user may have been a surgeon or a sailor, a school teacher or a street musician. It made no difference to the brush. Each was held the same way. Each endured the same 2 minutes of attention and was rinsed, shaken, returned. The toothbrush was the object that knew you without ceremony. It was neither impressed nor disappointed. It was simply there, Displayed on a pale oak plinth nearby is a child's toothbrush, its handle carved not from plastic, but soft, worn wood, likely handmade. The bristles are uneven, inserted manually, and secured with what appears to be thread. A tooth has been painted in the center of the grip, smiling but chipped. The curator's sleeve whispers past the edge of the label. This brush likely belonged to someone long gone, but it touched gums, scraped plaque, foamed laughter or protest. It lived, quietly but fully. Toothbrushes have seen prisons and palaces. They have been used to scrub floors, carve messages, hide contraband. In war zones, they are modified, sharpened, snapped, repurposed as tools of survival. In hospitals, they are sometimes labeled with room numbers, used once, discarded with soft efficiency. They are not heroic, but they are present, witnesses to the undramatic moments that shape real life. A prison-issued brush lies beneath a thick pane of glass. Its handle is translucent, hollow, shorter than most. This was designed for safety. Too small to be sharpened, too soft to splinter. The whispered scrape of the cleaning cloth on its case is the only sound. It is a brush that saw no freedom and perhaps no comfort, but it was offered all the same. When toothbrushes are no longer wanted, they vanish. Some are recycled, melted into new forms. Others are tossed into landfills, joining the slow sediment of synthetic waste. A few are repurposed, cleaned, and used to scrub jewelry, computer keyboards, or the grooves between tiles. The toothbrush becomes a secondary citizen in the world of tools. No longer noble, but still useful. Like an ex-performer sweeping the stage. In one drawer marked repurposed lives, toothbrushes appear stripped of identity. One has been scorched at the tip, used to melt wax seals. Another has bristles cut away entirely, its handle used to stir paint. A third has been bent with heat and fitted with wire to become a tool for repairing watches. The curator's hand lifts one gently before setting it back with a breath barely audible. Here, the toothbrush becomes anonymous once more, purposeful but directionless. Modern toothbrushes sometimes include alerts, lights that blink after 2 minutes, sensors that vibrate if pressure is too high. These innovations seek not to clean more, but to discipline better, to remind us, in gentle digital tones, that even routines require oversight. It is a strange irony that the most intimate of rituals must now be supervised by code. A brush with a built-in timer rests here, its LED long since faded. It blinks no more, but the intention remains. The hope that, through structure, we might become better at care. The soft clunk of the gallery door echoes behind us. The brush remains, indifferent to whether it taught anything. Sometimes it seems to suggest the act is the lesson. In rural areas where access is limited, toothbrushes often remain rare or communal. In refugee camps, they are distributed by NGOs, sometimes shared between siblings, sometimes lost in the mud of transit. The toothbrush becomes a luxury item, not by price, but by presence. And its absence is felt more in breath than in words. A field-distributed brush sits here, encased beside a hand-stitched cloth pouch. It is frayed, but intact. The soft scent of old fabric wafts upward, mixing with the sterility of the display. The brush was not elegant, but it was cherished. Not because it cleaned, but because it offered normalcy in a place without it. Toothbrushes, ultimately, are reminders that the body is not self-cleaning, that we are not as seamless as we imagine. They whisper of decay held at bay, of microbes managed by nylon and ritual. They do not judge our coffee, our cigarettes, our forgotten floss. They simply show up and scrub, like monks of the morning. And perhaps that is their deepest grace, not their form, but their return. Twice a day, every day, unthanked, unchanged, and always, somehow, necessary. There comes a point in every object's life when it begins to vanish. Not physically, but perceptually. The toothbrush reached that point decades ago. By becoming indispensable, it also became invisible. No one speaks of their toothbrush at dinner. No one frames it. It does not feature in novels or poems. It is held, used, rinsed, forgotten. And so it lives not in memory, but in repetition. A ghost that polishes bone. In a narrow drawer of the eastern wing lies a row of forgotten toothbrushes once left in public restrooms. Airport lounges, cinema sinks, rest stops beside empty highways. Each has been cleaned, catalogued, and assigned a quiet identity. Found near Gate 17. Discovered atop soap dispenser, Theater 5. Under paper towel bin, westbound service area. The whispered turn of the curator's key reveals them again to light. They are mute, anonymous, gently absurd, like umbrellas with bristles. Why do we forget them so easily? Perhaps because they never ask to be remembered. A toothbrush never mourns its owner, never calls out when misplaced. It has no voice, only presence. And in that presence, a remarkable humility, like a coat hook in a monastery or a stone step worn smooth by centuries of passing souls. The shape of the toothbrush, too, has stabilized into archetype. A long handle, a narrow head, a bristle bed measured not in luxury, but in access. Deviations are minor. An angle here, a textured grip there. The object resists drama. It knows its place. And for designers, that poses a quiet frustration. How to improve something that insists on remaining simple? One brush on display tries. It boasts an angled triple head system. 3 bristle clusters fanned out like the wings of an anxious pigeon. The idea was to clean all sides of the tooth at once. The execution resembled a sea creature auditioning for dentistry. The curator's breath fogs faintly on the case. This brush failed. It cleaned, but not well. It innovated, but no one cared. It sits here now as a reminder. Some things are not meant to be reimagined. They are meant to be respected. Yet toothbrushes have also entered the realm of art. Sculptors have used them to paint, dragging pigment in fine, even streaks. Mixed media installations have embedded them in resin, plastic, soil. One artist constructed a self-portrait entirely from used toothbrushes, arranged by wear pattern, forming a mosaic of bristle fatigue. Another planted a garden in which toothbrushes replaced flower stems, an act of post-consumer grief. Photographs of these works hang in the gallery's silent annex. The images are subdued, the colors muted. One shows 100 brushes standing upright in a sandbox, their shadows falling like tombstones at dusk. The whispered shuffle of gallery slippers crosses the floor. Here, the toothbrush is no longer tool, but symbol of repetition, of neglect, of quiet effort left unseen. In some cultures, the toothbrush is still a stick. Not for lack of means, but because the stick works. Miswak branches are sold fresh in markets, peeled with thumbnails, chewed into softness. They are antiseptic by nature, biodegradable by design, and imbued with ritual. The user prepares it with care, trims the bristles, stores it in cloth. Here, hygiene is not industrial, it is botanical. A dried miswak twig sits beneath a low spotlight, its surface darkened by age. It smells faintly of soil and sweetness. The curator's fingers hover, but do not touch. This brush requires no innovation. It has never been updated, and never will be. It is not a relic, but a reminder. Progress is not always forward. There have even been luxury toothbrushes, though few wish to admit it. Gold-plated handles, silver fittings, bristles tipped with diamond dust, though whether for abrasion or extravagance remains unclear. Some are displayed in boutiques with lighting more dramatic than any opera. These brushes are not for use. They are for possession. Like a violin made of glass. One such specimen is housed here. Sterling silver, engraved, its head covered by a custom leather cap. The whispered tug of a drawer's velvet lining frames it in gravity. It was never dipped in water, never laced with foam. It has never touched a tooth. It is, in essence, a toothbrush that failed to become a toothbrush, a monument to hesitation. And still, the brush continues. Into hotels, dormitories, bunkers, submarines, retirement homes. Its design shifts slightly, but its mission does not. Every brush is a whisper against time, a belief that even in entropy we might reclaim a corner of order, one bristle at a time. In a distant glass box, dimly lit, rests a toothbrush used in space. Short-handled, Velcro-backed, attached to a pouch with a tiny tether to prevent it from floating away. It was used on the International Space Station for 192 days. The bristles are worn at an angle. The faint crackle of static echoes from an old speaker loop nearby. A voice checking cabin pressure, muttering oxygen levels. The toothbrush made no announcement. It simply floated and waited. What other tool follows us so far? Into orbit, into prisons, into grief? What else is packed in haste during evacuations, slid into purses for overnight stays, tucked beside the charger and the keys? It is a tool that insists on hope, not the grand kind, but the kind with foam around the edges. To observe the toothbrush is to observe patience. It is not a tool of urgency. No one sprints to it. It waits, faithfully, silently, by sinks and mirrors nestled in cups or trays. And when picked up, it does not demand excellence, only presence. You need not do it well. You need only do it. That, perhaps, is the heart of its ritual, a brief moment of engagement with the body, unadorned, unfilmed, unspoken. In the low center case of this hall rests a brush manufactured during a global shortage. Its handle, molded from recycled materials, bears a marbled pattern of reds and browns, unexpectedly beautiful in a way that resembles a walnut contemplating fire. The bristles are uneven, stiffer than ideal, but functional. The whispered tick of a rotating fan interrupts the hush. This brush was made when supplies were uncertain. It is imperfect, and yet it worked. Toothbrushes live on margins. They appear in the corners of war memoirs, on supply lists for refugee kits, in the quiet pages of post-apocalyptic fiction. Even when civilization collapses, the toothbrush often survives, not out of necessity, but symbolism. It becomes shorthand for dignity, for structure, for the attempt to maintain humanity with nylon and paste. A character brushing their teeth while the world burns is not absurd. It is aspirational. One fiction display contains a replica from a 1979 dystopian film. The brush is translucent green, comically oversized, meant to signal technological exaggeration. Its bristles pulse with a slow light, and its base hums with faux intelligence. It was not a real brush, but it was a real idea, that even when machines rule or cities fall, we still cling to small rituals. The curator's sleeve brushes the switch, and the light flickers to life. In the early days of mass advertising, the toothbrush became a contested territory. Who needed it? When should it be used? How often? Campaigns played on fear, decay, odor, rejection. Others promised romance, confidence, success. The toothbrush, which had never asked for attention, suddenly found itself in the spotlight, co-opted by soap operas and jingles. In some ads, the brush was even animated, singing, dancing, dispensing wisdom like a minty prophet. Old reels play silently on a wall of looping film. A woman beams as she brushes, her smile bright as ceramic. A man nods solemnly at his reflection. A cartoon toothbrush jumps across the screen, wearing boots. The soft clatter of the film reel sounds like a breath made visible. The images are absurd, yes, but also sincere. They believed. And belief, no matter how trivial, has weight. There were times, too, when brushing was ritualized beyond function. Some monastic orders practiced oral cleansing not for hygiene, but humility, reaffirming the body's impermanence. Some ancient practices included salt rubs, ash scrubs, or fragrant bark, performed before prayer. Even now, some cultures precede brushing with recitations, morning offerings, or meditative silence. In these moments, the toothbrush is not a tool, but a transition between night and day, spirit and body, silence and speech. A ritual set from a small Himalayan monastery lies folded within a silk-lined drawer. The brush is carved from dark wood, the bristles from horsehair. It rests beside a folded cloth and a vial of salt. The whispered pull of the drawer's runners slows our pace. The set was used not to clean thoroughly, but to begin gently. And in that gentleness, meaning bloomed. In contrast, there were brushes issued en masse to industrial workers during hygiene drives. Simple, utilitarian, identical. They were tokens of a larger system, gestures meant to civilize, organize, or discipline. The brush became part of the time card. Clock in, wash hands, brush teeth, assemble parts. It was an extension of order, not care. A crate of such brushes is stacked here, unopened. Their cardboard is brittle, the ink faded, but the stamps remain. Issued, Factory 6, Sector B. Each brush has a number. None has a name. The faint groan of wood underfoot passes like a memory. These brushes may never have been used. They were meant to be distributed, not cherished. And yet, toothbrushes do sometimes matter more than expected. In care homes, they are labeled. In boarding schools, they are compared. In relationships, they become quietly shared. One partner borrows the other's, pretends it's temporary, and eventually claims a drawer space. The toothbrush becomes evidence, not of love, but of habitation. A double holder is displayed here, retrieved from a domestic bathroom before demolition. The left brush is blue, the right pink. Both are slightly frayed. The base bears toothpaste residue hardened into a swirl, like a fossilized argument. The whispered tap of a pen against the display glass punctuates the intimacy. The brushes don't match, but they lived beside each other. There are also novelty brushes, shaped like animals, instruments, famous buildings. Some sing songs, others glow. A few come scented, bubblegum, strawberry, fresh glacier. These are marketed mostly to children, though adults too occasionally reach for amusement in the oral aisle. A flamingo brush, designed to stand on one leg, peeks from its display with irreverent pride. Its bristles are pink, its intentions unclear. It sits beside a toothbrush designed for dogs, double-headed, angled with a beef-flavored handle. One wonders if dogs appreciate the gesture or simply tolerate it as part of the human madness. Still, someone designed it. Someone believed it mattered. And belief, again, is its own utility. We come now to a brush retrieved from the wreckage of a collapsed apartment. It is scorched, its bristles melted into a brittle curl. The handle is bent, blackened, yet still clearly itself. It is accompanied by no plaque, only a date. The air around it seems to hold still. This brush, damaged though it is, testifies, not to tragedy, but to the ordinary that existed before it, before flame, before dust. There was brushing. Some objects speak loudly. The toothbrush never has. It hums, perhaps, or murmurs, but its voice is one of softness, repetition, quiet utility. And in that humility, it endures. While trends rotate and fads combust, while devices chirp and flash and vanish, the toothbrush remains, firm, bristled, and silent. There is a kind of strength in that, an object that seeks neither improvement nor applause. In this next exhibit, a wooden display case holds a peculiar toothbrush encased in amber-colored resin. It was discovered in the floorboards of a late 19th century boarding house, likely wedged beneath loose planks for decades. The handle is thin, bone-like, and cracked with age. The bristles, once boar hair, have mostly dissolved, leaving behind a memory of texture like a field after frost. The whispered brush of a coat hem trails along the edge of the display. This brush is not significant, but it stayed. Time, of course, wears down even the hardiest of bristles. Nylon frays, wood warps, plastic yellows, but some brushes are not thrown away. They are tucked into drawers, packed in boxes, kept for reasons no one can quite explain. Perhaps they belong to someone now gone. Perhaps they were never quite finished. Perhaps they simply escaped attention. The toothbrush, once unnoticed in its use, becomes oddly conspicuous in its persistence. An old metal tin on the next shelf contains just such a survivor. A brush wrapped in paper, never opened, with the logo of a vanished manufacturer embossed in faded green. Swan and Whiteley for a clean tomorrow. The slogan feels both hopeful and resigned, like a promise whispered into wind. The soft rattle of a ventilation duct joins the silence. One wonders if the brush was a gift or a purchase. Either way, it waited patiently to be needed. And was not. Not all toothbrushes are practical. In some eras, the brush was decorative, gifted like a pen or a fan. It was kept in leather travel kits or mirrored vanity cases, lined with crushed velvet and designed to impress rather than clean. Their bristles were secondary. Their purpose was presence. Here, on a marble plinth, rests one such brush, ivory-handled, monogrammed, nestled in a fitted velvet pocket inside a hinged box. It resembles a brooch or a weapon of etiquette. The curator's gloved fingers lift the lid slowly, releasing a faint scent of cedar. This brush never saw toothpaste, but it saw admiration. Perhaps that was enough. Toothbrushes have, in some rare cases, become political. Campaigns promoting dental hygiene as a national duty. Wartime posters urging cleanliness in the trenches. Propaganda suggesting that brushing daily made one a better citizen. Disciplined, modern, clean. The brush in these cases became more than a tool. It became a symbol of compliance. One such poster hangs here, brittle and sun-faded. A smiling soldier, toothbrush in hand, accompanied by the slogan, "Fight plaque, defend the nation." Below it, a military-issued brush in olive plastic, paired with a tube of rationed paste. The whispered crackle of the poster's paper echoes as the air stirs. It is absurd, perhaps, but also earnest. The mouth, after all, is where orders begin and promises are made. The toothbrush has also been used to measure time. 2 minutes, twice a day. A rhythm repeated across lifetimes. Brushing becomes a form of punctuation. Before the commute, after the meal, before the bed. It defines transitions. You may not know what day it is, but if you brush, the day has shape. In one quiet corner of the gallery stands a metronome modified to tick for 2 minutes. It was once sold with a child's toothbrush set, an attempt to train proper timing through rhythm. The brush itself is long gone, but the metronome remains ticking softly. Tick, tick, tick. The rhythm is slow, soothing. One can imagine a child counting, one can imagine forgetting to count, but brushing anyway. Dental education kits, now vintage, line the next shelf. Oversized toothbrushes paired with enormous plastic jaws, used in classrooms to demonstrate technique. The jaws are pink and slightly alarming, the brush is comically large, but the intention is sincere. Teach them young, teach them well, teach them to brush, and hope the rest follows. A pair of those jaws rests open here, the brush still wedged in mid-stroke, as though paused in a great molar monologue. The soft squeak of a display light turning on completes the scene. These were never real teeth, but they carried the idea of teeth, and so were treated with care. The toothbrush has always understood symbolism better than we give it credit for. Of course, there are brushes designed for the end of life. In palliative care, toothbrushes are often used not to clean, but to moisten, to comfort, to maintain dignity. Swabs, foam heads, ultra-soft bristles, designed not for plaque, but for gentleness. These brushes are not meant to last. They are meant to soothe. A soft-tipped palliative brush lies here on linen beside a folded note. Only used once, but it helped. The curator does not read the note aloud. The note does not need to be read. It speaks in presence, not volume. The toothbrush has no ambition. It only offers what it can. Even the toothbrush, so committed to the ordinary, occasionally brushes against the edges of ceremony. Weddings, funerals, hospital visits, sleepovers, jail releases, travel departures before dawn. There it is, waiting by the sink, or not packed, or quietly shared. Sometimes borrowed, sometimes missed, sometimes replaced with a finger and a sigh. And yet, its absence is more noticeable than its presence. You may not remember the toothbrush, but you remember when it wasn't there. A weathered overnight bag is displayed here, still zipped halfway open, as if mid-check. Inside, a single toothbrush lies diagonally across a folded undershirt. The handle is faded yellow. The bristles lean to one side like tall grass facing a breeze. The whispered rasp of sliding glass breaks the silence. This brush wasn't chosen. It was grabbed. It didn't match anything. But it mattered. The packing was rushed. The brushing still happened. In archaeological sites, toothbrushes rarely survive. Their materials, wood, bristle, early plastic, surrender too easily to time. But what survives are the signs of brushing, tooth wear, grooves in enamel, abrasions from overzealous scrubbing. The act leaves traces even when the tool does not. In that sense, the toothbrush is like a ghost that haunts the teeth, leaving its signature in silence. A dental cast in the gallery ES left wing shows just such grooves, parallel striations worn into the front incisors of a sailor who died in the mid-1800s. The rest of the mouth is badly decayed, but the brushing marks remain. Deep, determined, misguided perhaps, but devoted. The soft hiss of an air vent brushes across the label. The toothbrush did what it could. Sometimes that isn't enough, but it tries. Cultural toothbrushes vary not only in form, but in rhythm. Some brush before every meal, others only in the morning. Some cultures swish with oil, others chew herbs, others gargle salt water while watching television. The toothbrush has, in many places, become one option among many, a familiar but not universal companion. And yet, where it appears, it becomes habitual, rarely questioned, rarely defended, just done. In the next display sits a trio of traditional brushes, one from a rural Cambodian village, one from a South African township, one from a Norwegian fishing hut. All used, all handmade, none labeled by brand. They sit at equal angles, like diplomats exchanging modest greetings. The curator's glove gently adjusts the middle brush by a millimeter. It responds without complaint. Tools, unlike people, rarely mind being aligned. Toothbrushes occasionally feature in photographs, but usually by accident. A mirror selfie, a bathroom shelf in the background, a celebrity's toiletry bag glimpse during a house tour. And when they are noticed, they often prompt quiet amusement. What brand does he use? Does she really brush with that? The toothbrush becomes a detail too small for scandal, too intimate for irony. It reveals not status, but preference. Not performance, but pattern. A wall of found photographs lines the west corridor. Cropped, grainy, anonymous. In each image somewhere, a toothbrush is visible. Tucked behind a lamp. Half lost in a drawer. Balanced on the edge of a basin. None of the subjects are brushing, but all of them, presumably, will. Or did. The soft click of the image carousel sounds like distant rain. These are not portraits of toothbrushes. They are portraits of lives into which toothbrushes have wandered, uninvited but tolerated. The act of brushing itself has been filmed, drawn, animated, and performed, but rarely elevated. It is not poetic. It is not cinematic. It lacks drama, climax, suspense. And yet, there is something quietly profound about a scene in which someone, alone, brushes their teeth. It suggests reflection. It signals pause. It is one of the few bodily acts performed daily that is neither sexual nor medical, just maintenance. In a looped video installation near the museum's atrium, a screen plays footage from various films, montages of characters brushing, some furious, some exhausted, some singing, some weeping. The brush becomes, in these moments, a stand-in for presence. The world outside can burn. But still, the teeth must be cleaned. There are 2 moments of comedy. The brush dropped in the toilet, the brush used on shoes by accident, the brush mistaken for someone else's. In these scenes, the toothbrush becomes the fulcrum of discomfort, never dramatic, but always slightly sticky, its intimacy betrayed, its role briefly questioned. And yet, the next morning, we return. Always, we return. One display features a novelty brush shaped like a banana. its bristles emerging from what would be the fruit's tip. It was a promotional item from a defunct smoothie chain. Unused, unsellable, unforgettable. The curator's clipboard squeaks faintly as a note is made. The brush is ridiculous. But it is still a brush, and that is somehow enough. In the archives, there are sketches, design iterations, technical drawings, memos discussing optimal bristle angle, ideal handle length, color psychology, blister pack arrangements. Behind every brush lies a forest of decisions, all made for an object that is, at most, glanced at twice a day for 2 minutes. It is a reminder that no object is too small for intention, that even the most ordinary shape was shaped once by thought. Behind every toothbrush lies a trail of compromise, between design and use, function and feel, cost and care. The handle must be light, but not flimsy. The head must be small, but not useless. The bristles must be soft, but not too soft, or else they will be accused of coddling plaque. It is a delicate balance, like building a violin for the mouth, one expected never to sing. In the designer's case, we find early prototypes, carved from wax, modeled in resin, adjusted with the precision of dental tools themselves. The brush heads are slightly asymmetrical. Some handles are triangular, others are looped. One resembles a spoon bent in existential confusion. The whispered scratch of a stylus across archival plastic hums in the background. None of these designs reached market, but all were tried. And in the trying, something was learned. The toothbrush is not a glamorous product. It is not unboxed on YouTube. It is not given as a gift unless you've made a tactical error. And yet, the industry around it is vast. Billions manufactured annually, thousands of patents filed, entire conferences held on bristle tension and head articulation. There are awards for innovation. There are keynote speeches. Somewhere, someone is pitching a toothbrush that plays jazz. Displayed near the conference wall is a limited edition brush awarded Best User Experience 2018. The handle curves like a question mark. The bristles are inlaid with color-coded segments, meant to indicate zones of cleaning. A QR code on the base links to a now-defunct app. The soft click of a rotating plaque marks its place in history. It was designed to make brushing feel intuitive. It did not survive. In truth, most brushes do not want to be noticed. The good ones, especially, vanish into habit. You pick them up, use them, set them down. They don't slip. They don't cut, they don't shout, they simply work, and in working, they become invisible. That is their triumph and their tragedy. An unlabeled brush lies flat in the next display. No logo, no flair, barely a shape at all. The bristles are uniform, the handle matte and straight. It is the platonic toothbrush. The whispered snap of a display light overhead draws a faint halo across its length. It is so unremarkable. It becomes remarkable. In resisting attention, it earns it. For decades, toothbrush advertisements promised whiteness, not cleanliness, but brightness. Dazzle, sparkle, flash. Teeth that gleamed like polished tile. This was not about health. It was about optics, about transforming the toothbrush into an accessory of charisma. Brushing became performance, a way to be seen, even alone. A vintage ad campaign plays silently nearby. Models beam through clouds of foam. Arrows point to invisible bacteria. A smiling actor holds up a toothbrush like a sword of justice. The soft flutter of projection film adds texture to the light. These were not lies, but they were enthusiastic. And enthusiasm, when applied to nylon, becomes comedy. One brush on display still carries its 1990s packaging. Extreme whitening action, it promises. The font is aggressive. The background is a burst of metallic blue. The brush itself is disappointingly normal. White, soft-tipped. The handle slightly translucent. The gap between promise and reality, preserved forever in cellophane. Yet for all this effort, the toothbrush remains private. Unlike shoes, phones, or even pillows, it is rarely shared. It does not travel from hand to hand. It is not borrowed, admired, or sold secondhand. It is, in this way, a truly personal object. It lives close to your breath, your bones, your bacteria, and when its time is done, it is thrown away quietly, like a letter that was read and then forgotten. The waste is considerable. Billions of plastic handles discarded each year, many never to degrade. Entire beaches now contain toothbrushes weathered by salt and sun. They wash ashore like bleached fish, their bristles splayed like tired fireworks. And still we make more. One such ocean-recovered brush rests here, its handle warped by heat and time. The color has drained to gray. The bristles are no longer bristles, but threads. The whispered clink of the case's edge echoes as it is gently rotated. This brush once lived in someone's bathroom, then someone's landfill, then someone's ocean. Now it lives here, documented, labeled, displayed, not for praise, but for pause. In response, some innovators have turned to compostables, bamboo, pressed hay, biodegradable polymers. The packaging promises decay. The marketing suggests virtue. But the problem, always, is the bristle. Nylon does not vanish. And bristles must be bristles, or they are something else entirely. A test unit from a recent trial lies disassembled nearby. The handle is elegant, wood-grained, clearly engineered, but the head is missing. A note explains, "Bristle separation occurred during use." The faint crackle of a nearby speaker, resetting its loop, mimics static regret. A toothbrush must never fall apart mid-brush. It is, if nothing else, a promise of cohesion. And yet, even this failure speaks of progress. Someone tried, someone thought of the sea. Someone stood in a lab and said, "Surely we can do better." The toothbrush did not ask for this care, but it received it. That, perhaps, is enough. Some tools invite admiration, others invite trust. The toothbrush invites neither. It is not proud. It is not sleek. It lives at the edges of vision, the ends of days, the margins of attention. And in doing so, it achieves something rare. Consistency without applause. It does not hope to be remembered. It hopes only to be used, and not too harshly. Here, in a tall rotating pillar display, stand brushes arranged by decade, 1900 to 2020, one per shelf. Each similar, each slightly altered. Bristles grow denser, handles lengthen, curve, soften. Color spreads from tip to base. By the 2000s, some sparkle, others twist, one even hums. The whispered hum of the rotating motor joins them. It is a visual timeline not of invention, but of adjustment. Not a staircase, but a spiral. The brush does not evolve. It circles. Toothbrushes are often discarded, but rarely destroyed. A bad brush is replaced, not burned. An old brush is demoted to tile duty, to grout cleaning, to shoe polishing servitude. It becomes a domestic ghost, haunting corners, drawers, forgotten cups under the sink. And though it loses status, it gains resilience. No longer noble, but useful, like a general turned janitor. One drawer here is dedicated entirely to these post-retirement lives. Brushes with clipped bristles, handles scorched by cleaning fluid, labels faded to nonsense, each tagged not by brand, but by repurposing. Used to clean typewriter keys, designated for window tracks. Rebranded as jewelry tool. The curator's breath fogs the display briefly. These brushes are not failures, they are survivors. Some people keep old brushes for years, tucked into travel kits, just in case. Hoarded like string, trusted despite their age, worn into comfort like shoes. These brushes know their users' habits. They do not complain when bristles splay. They do not flinch when the paste grows crusty. They simply persist, loyal if nothing else. A travel pouch hangs nearby, opened and gently lit. Inside, a brush held together with tape. A note. "Don't throw this out. It still works." The whispered snap of a zippered case joins the air. It's not clear who the note was meant for, perhaps no one. Perhaps the brush itself, or perhaps just time. The toothbrush is one of few tools used with such intimacy, yet such detachment. We press it into our mouths without thought. We rinse it, shake it, return it. We do not thank it, we do not clean it with care, and yet it never resents us. It is humble in a way most tools are not. A peeler complains, a comb resists, a pen leaks, the toothbrush just keeps going. In the corner sits a sculpture made from discarded toothbrushes, woven together into a circular form, like a crown or a failed halo. The colors have faded to pastels, the shapes strain slightly against each other. It is beautiful in the way sediment is beautiful, layers of function, pressed without design. The whispered breath of a passing visitor disturbs a hair caught in one bristle. No alarm sounds. The piece remains untouched. Even the word toothbrush is pedestrian. It does not lend itself to poetry. It cannot be whispered romantically. It has too many consonants, too little rhythm. And yet, what else could it be called? It brushes teeth. It does not aspire beyond that. And perhaps that is what gives it strength, the clarity of its purpose. There have been attempts to rename or reframe it. Oral hygiene tool, dental wand, enamel scrubber. But none have stuck. The toothbrush, like a loyal mule, resists rebranding. It has no elegance to lose. It cannot be cheapened because it was never expensive. It cannot be mocked because it mocks nothing. It is simply itself. The last case in this corridor contains a toothbrush that belonged to someone unnamed. The label reads only, "Found in jacket pocket, estate sale, no further information." The brush is plain, white, slightly curved. The bristles are worn, but not ruined. There is no story here, no legacy, only use. And use, in its own quiet way, is a kind of meaning. Sometimes we imagine objects as having memory, that a chair remembers who sat in it, that a mirror recalls what it reflected, that a toothbrush perhaps knows our mornings better than we do. This is nonsense, but comforting nonsense. And the toothbrush, humble, silent, allows the fantasy. It stands in our lives like a priest without a sermon. No wisdom, no judgment, only the act. And the act repeated becomes belief, not in something grand, but in something clean. The toothbrush has, by now, completed its journey through invention, refinement, mass production, and global saturation. It no longer changes in dramatic ways. Its revolutions have slowed to ripples, a new material here, a slight angle there. Its function is known, its value assumed. It is not debated. It is not feared. It is simply there, like the weather of the mouth. Reliable, occasionally inconvenient, but necessary. In the final case of the main gallery, 6 brushes lie flat, each from the past 6 years. One is antimicrobial, one connects to an app, one glows, one biodegrades, one boasts diamond-shaped bristles. The last is black, matte, and claims to be inspired by aerospace engineering. None are extraordinary, but all perform the task. The whispered scuff of the gallery's cleaning cloth circles the glass. These are not prototypes. They are products. They ask for use, not admiration. Toothbrushes now live in algorithmic catalogs, sorted by softness and color, advertised by smiling dentists with digitally perfect teeth. Some arrive by subscription, as if hygiene were a service. Others are sold in supermarkets for the price of silence. The gap between innovation and marketing widens. The toothbrush remains the same, but it wears new words like costumes. A blister pack from last season rests here, unopened. Its label reads, Sonic-tuned dual grip smart bristle matrix. The brush inside is white, small, familiar. The packaging is louder than the tool. A soft sigh from the museum's vent system reminds us, brushing makes no sound unless we listen very closely. There are now toothbrushes for pets, for toddlers, for people with dexterity impairments, for those with no teeth at all, foam swabs, finger sleeves, disposable cloths, silicone nubs. But these are not deviations. They are accommodations, variations on the same ritual. The bristles may be absent, the motion gentler, but the intention holds to tend the mouth, to begin and end the day with some small mercy. In the quietest case of all, a brush without bristles lies suspended between two panes of glass. Its handle is soft rubber, its tip ribbed. It is meant for babies, or for those no longer able to tolerate abrasion. It cleans nothing completely, but it comforts. And sometimes that is more important. Here, in this far corner, the toothbrush meets its own limits. There is only so much to improve, only so much to change. Its form is dictated by the shape of the mouth, the reach of the hand, the tolerance of enamel. It is not a scream. It is not a drone. It is not trying to become anything else. It has found its shape, and in that shape, a kind of rest. The brush is replaced every few months. It does not expect permanence. It is born to be used. Its highest success is invisibility. Its greatest compliment, forgetting that it was ever dirty. At the base of the display sits a glass basin. Inside, 1,000 discarded toothbrushes, cleaned, dried, anonymized. They are layered like sediment, their colors faintly glowing under soft light. The effect is oceanic, like coral that has forgotten the sea. The whispered clink of a bristle against glass echoes faintly. These brushes once lived in mouths, cups, pouches, prison sinks, first apartments, and last hospital rooms. Now they live here, without purpose, but not without dignity. To walk the full gallery is to understand that the toothbrush is not merely a tool. It is a pattern, a gesture, a soft-spoken agreement between biology and time. It does not fight decay. It manages it. It does not restore youth. It slows erosion. It is in every way a symbol of maintenance. Not glory, not reinvention, but care repeated in small, damp circles. And so the toothbrush rests again, soft in memory, flexible in meaning, always ready to begin anew. To brush one's teeth is to insist quietly that something still matters. Not the grand matters, ideals, nations, legacies, but the small ones. The taste of breath, the feel of enamel, the gentle sting of mint at the roof of the mouth. It is a ritual so minor, so habitual, that its meaning lies precisely in its repetition, not because we are told to, but because we choose to. Because even in fatigue, even in despair, we still pick up the brush. It is, in that sense, not a hygienic act, but an existential one, a daily renewal, not of faith, perhaps, but of participation. In the low central chamber of this final wing, no toothbrushes are displayed, only reflections. Panels of brushed steel line the walls, warped just slightly so that one sees not oneself, but a softened version, a blur at the edges, a mouth without a face. The whispered whir of a fan overhead mimics the breath of morning. It is not a gallery, it is a space for forgetting. The toothbrush is a contradiction, intimate but impersonal, disposable but essential, universal but entirely unspoken. We do not tell stories about our toothbrushes. We do not name them. And yet, we allow them into our mouths. We trust them with the last gesture before sleep and the first after silence. Few other objects cross such thresholds. A spoon may feed others. A comb may be shared, but a toothbrush is yours alone. Its handle remembers your grip. Its bristles learn your pressure. It adapts to you, silently, until it is replaced. And even then, the next one must learn you all over again. In one alcove of the gallery, a small bench faces a projected loop of mouths brushing. Slow, quiet, unremarkable. No faces, just the act. Circular motions, water running, paste foaming, the muted sound of bristles against enamel. There is no narration, no message, only rhythm. The kind of rhythm that comforts not because it entertains, but because it continues. That is what the toothbrush offers, a rhythm of return in sickness and in health, in joy and in resignation. It does not heal, but it maintains. It does not cure, but it notices. It reminds us, twice a day, that we are made of matter, and that matter needs tending. The philosopher might say it is a symbol of futility, that no brushing is ever permanent, that decay always resumes. But the toothbrush does not care for such conclusions. It brushes anyway. It does not expect applause. It expects contact. This is perhaps why it features so rarely in dreams. We do not imagine it. We remember it. We perform it. And in performing it, we return to ourselves, not as ideas or hopes or fears, but as mouths, fragile, complex, perishable, needing something soft, something repetitive, something small and certain to meet them where they are. There are tools we inherit and tools we invent, but the toothbrush belongs to a third category, tools we repeat. It is not born of inspiration, but of rhythm, not designed to dazzle, but to return. Its genius lies not in what it is, but in how many times it has been, over and over, morning and night, birth to decline, sickness to health, always the same gesture, slight, circular, soft. No other object has been trusted so often by people so tired. In this final chamber, the displays are gone. Only a long, low wall of text remains, lines barely etched into soft limestone. They are not quotes, they are not names, they are fragments. Brushed after crying, forgot it on my wedding day, lost in the move, still using hers. They are not for exhibition, they are for recognition. The whispered echo of your own footsteps fills the silence. Here, finally, the toothbrush is not observed. It is remembered. To live a life is to carry 1,000 objects, and to forget most of them. But some refuse disappearance, not because they are loud or grand, but because they are constant. The toothbrush is one. It has seen you undone. It has waited through your worst hours. It has stood damp and dull in the glass by the mirror, uncomplaining. It does not claim to know you, but it knows your grip. It knows your pressure. It knows the way your wrist hesitates when you're too tired to care. And it brushes anyway. Even in a world that forgets to look down, the toothbrush remains. Amid technology, spectacle, performance, it continues. It does not beep. It does not scroll. It does not update. And yet, it is always new. Every day, 2 minutes at a time. You lift it, you move it, you rinse it, you place it down. No matter what else the day holds, this you do. We do not write poems to toothbrushes, but perhaps we should, because the toothbrush is not a machine. It is a witness, not to triumphs, but to the act of beginning again, in silence, without fanfare, in steam, and breath, and foam, and time. And so the toothbrush rests again, soft in memory, flexible in meaning, always ready to begin anew.